This is The High Road with author and registered psychotherapist, Dr. Marlene Bizub. Dr. Marlene speaks to the heart of people who need to be lifted up and get out of the muck and mire that often accompanies major life changes, such as divorce or separation. Dr. Marlene will aspire to help parents of divorce to love their children more than they hate their ex, and to learn to take the high road. So please welcome the host of The High Road, Dr. Marlene.
Good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. Welcome, George. Glad to have you back.
Great to be back with you, Dr. Marlene. I missed the show.
Yes, and we missed having you. Sarah Shepik did a great job, but we missed having you.
Well, I have to have my shark-like tendencies sharpened for today.
Yes, that's right, because we're going to revisit the topic from last week, because I want to hear an attorney perspective on things divorcing and separating parents should not do. And Sarah and I covered a lot of things that I'm sure we'll cover again today about don't speak badly to your children about the other parent, don't involve them in adult issues, all that kind of stuff, make them feel like they have permission to love the other parent, all those kinds of things. But from the legal perspective, of course, neither she nor I are legal experts at all. And so we didn't have anything to offer in the way of, on the legal side, what should parents not do? And so I'm sure this is going to open a lot of discussion between you and me, but I have no idea what you're going to say.
Well, I think there's probably a lot of overlap in terms of what
Yes.
one should or shouldn't do legally and what one should or shouldn't do psychologically. And so probably you've touched on a lot of the things anyway that I would tell a client, first of all, don't use your children as messengers.
Yes. Yes.
Communicate between the two of you. Memorialize agreements with an email or a text or something on an app. Have some sort of a brief writing, because memories fade and there's selective perception and selective retention, and that's not a legal thing, but certainly it impacts what we deal with. Um,
Yeah.
if 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 first of all, if there's an issue, read your parenting plan. That's the first thing I say is go to that parenting plan. It's there for a reason. If that doesn't resolve the issue, then legally, I would recommend that people have a parent coordinator decision maker, and
Yeah.
and that would be a preferred method of conflict resolution for minor issues. If it's a major issue, you're going to need to get in touch with your attorney. And
Yes.
if it's a recurrent issue, the right thing to do is to get in touch with counsel, go have a conference with your attorney, and the attorney can review different pathways that can be taken, both informally or not in the legal context, and as far as filing of motions and things of that nature, setting hearings and going forward on that track. But I think it's kind of axiomatic that I tell people the more you fight, the more you're going to fight.
Yes.
So if we can get them to move in a different direction for conflict resolution post decree, certainly that's something that's worth pursuing.
Yes. Yes. I love that, because you're right. The more parents fight, the more they're going to fight, because then they just become embroiled in a power struggle or a one-upmanship, things like that. And it doesn't turn out well anytime you have to litigate, like you always say. And, I always threaten to put this on a poster behind me here. But as you always say, No two co-parents ever litigated their way to a healthy co-parenting relationship, right?
No, and I stand by that. I think
Yeah.
litigation creates a win-lose dynamic, and
Hmm.
then you're going to have parties who are defensive, who are aggressive, who are self-perpetuating in terms of their sense of justification, and that's what litigation does. And so again, you end up in a court of loss where you
Yes.
lose what you want or what you think you were entitled to receive. You lose control of significant aspects of your own life, and there are cases that need to go to trial. They
Hmm.
exist. We acknowledge that certainly, but as far as the impact on children is concerned, less high conflict alternatives are certainly desirable. I was at a family reunion, not my family, but I met a lot of people that I hadn't met before, and among them there was a principal, a teacher, and then one I had known for a while that was a coach. And these were people who were in these positions for many years, 30 plus years. And it was interesting when I asked them about children who are the focal point of conflict in their educational experience, and they said that oftentimes they could discern when a child is the focal point of conflict between
Mm.
divorcing or separated parents. And I thought that was quite interesting. And it also indicated to me the influence for the good that some of these people have with children, the social capital that they represent for that child.
Yes. Yes. And, I would agree with them that I can certainly tell. Now, of course, I know kids are going through their parents' divorce if they're in my office, but I can tell pretty quickly which ones have parents who are getting through it relatively well and relatively peacefully, maybe not completely, or they wouldn't be in my office. But I can also tell the ones who are just engaged and embroiled in serious conflict, like constant conflict. And those kids are anxious, and you can just tell there's a difference. And I can believe that the teacher and the coach and people like that can tell when kids are going through something like that.
Well, it was very interesting because their responses were pretty uniform, and they had different contacts with kids, but their responses were pretty uniform in saying, "Yeah, oftentimes we can tell."
Yes. Yeah. And I'll bet that's true. Well,
And
another oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, and I think for some children that are collateral damage, if I could put it that way, of their parents' war, um,
Mhm.
then that a basketball team or some sort of extracurricular activity can assume a much larger role in that child's life. It gives them an opportunity to be in an environment which is free from that conflict.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up because I often see kids go one of two ways. It's kind of like they go down one of two paths. They either engage in healthy activities and they do get involved in a lot of clubs at school or sports or extracurricular activities, or they engage in unhealthy behaviors and um, have friends who are not good kids and they get into legal trouble or just skip school, maybe drink alcohol if they're older, things like that. And you can definitely tell. And things like sports teams, I encourage the kids that I work with to get involved in things like that because it does lessen the impact of the parents' conflict on the child. They have a positive outlet. They have somewhere to go and people to be around and something to do that has nothing to do with their parents' conflict. Whereas when they just go home, and it doesn't matter which home they go to, one might be worse than the other, but when they go home, they're in the middle of conflict. They're enmeshed in the conflict. They can't really get away from it. And
Well,
so
I
those
think
other outlets are good. Yeah.
if it's a litigated case,
Hmm.
the more intense the feelings, and they're
Hmm.
very intense surrounding litigation, probably the more pressure on the child.
Yes. Yes. And they know when their parents are litigating. They do because they hear them on the phone or talking to a friend or coworker or neighbor or whoever, family member, about my attorney said this, and we go to court next week or, whatever. And the kids hear it and they know it. They know what's going on. And it's stressful for them too.
Well, and I'm constantly surprised by how young children are when they start to realize if they are the focal point of conflict. They might not
Mhm.
express it the way we do. They might say my tummy hurts or something like that, but
Mhm.
it's a very interesting phenomenon that they understand that so young.
Yes. Yes. They do. And it also amazes me how young they will do things like eavesdrop and read their parents' texts and emails and things like that. Because they do that and they do it at a pretty young age. And, I have 6 and 8-year-olds walking in asking me things that they should know nothing about. And I'm like, how did you hear that? Oh, my mom was talking to my aunt on the phone. And, so if you think your kids aren't doing that, somebody said the other day, I forgot where it was and who it was, but they were talking about this is the kids' lives, the children's lives. And so they want to know what's going on. We try to keep them out of adult issues, but let's face it, it affects their lives. And so, of course, they want to know what's going on because it affects them.
Sure. And I think it's probably parents don't realize how unfair it is to a child to posture the child as the emotional caretaker of the parent.
Yes, yes. Well, and actually, that's one of the things that we talked a lot about last week is children are not responsible for their parents' happiness. So some of the don'ts from my end, my perspective in the work I do is don't make kids feel bad or guilty because they've made you sad. Like I've had parents who they'll say it hurts their feelings because the child didn't say, I love you back before they got off a call or something like that. And kids are not responsible for their parents' good feelings and happiness. And I mean, do we want to make our parents feel good? Of course. We want to make all family members and friends and all people feel good. But to put it on a kid that you didn't say I love you back last week before we got off the call, because that's what I had happen. I was am doing video calls with a dad and 2 kids, and I disconnected the call. It was the end of the call, and we were done, and we were saying goodbye. And then dad, right before I disconnected, said, I love you guys. And then I disconnected, not knowing, of course, he was going to say that. And the next week, he starts off with, at the end of the call last week, it really hurt my feelings that you didn't say, I love you back. And I said, whoa, 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 that was me disconnecting the call because I thought we were done. But the point was, and I said it right there in front of the dad, I told the kids, you aren't responsible though for your dad's or your mom's happiness and for making them feel good. That's not your job. And one of the kids said, I did say it, Dad, you just didn't hear me, and so, yeah.
Well, and I can't really overstate how high emotions run
Hmm.
for parents going through divorce. I have had a case where my client kidnapped the children.
Mm,
And so the intensity of emotions that are being experienced by the client, at least from my perspective, it's really astonishing, and it's something that we have to be careful about, and we have to be mindful of, and I think we play a role in reinforcing good behavior on the part of our clients,
yeah.
and say, you did a good thing there when you traded weekends or something like that. You're really prioritizing your children's lives, and that's a good thing, and we play a role there,
Hmm.
because from litigation, we don't have contact with the children. We just create collateral damage for the
Right.
most part.
Right. But I agree. It's our job as professionals, our responsibility to reinforce, and I do it too, the positive behavior. When parents can take the high road, when they can be civil and put the kids' needs above their own and things like that, I reinforce that every time. I tell them, good job. That's what you should do. You're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing to take care of your children. And I really emphasize to them, your children will benefit, not just, oh, good job, parent, but you're really taking care of your kids by doing that. And that, I think, really reinforces it because parents want to be good parents. They want to take care of their kids, but they get sidetracked sometimes taking care of their own needs and addressing their own hurt or anger or resentment or maybe feelings of betrayal, and they, for a moment, often forget about their kids. And so I reinforce the focus on the child every chance I get.
Yeah, I think that's important, and the thing that I deal with, and it takes some finesse, it takes some experience, it takes some sensitivity to trying to retain the client's trust that, yes, I'm on your side and I'm hearing you, and I understand your concerns, and I intend to address those one way or another, and trying to move them off the litigation track, because
Mhm.
their sensitivity is, oh, you're not willing to fight for me,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
it doesn't take any imagination to fight. We can always fight.
right.
That's no problem for lawyers.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
um, but there is a delicate balance that we have to maintain with the client so that they continue to trust us and our advisements and so forth.
Mhm.
And that, yes, you're willing to fight for them, and yet trying to move them on to a less litigious perspective in moving forward in the case. It's a very delicate balance for lawyers to maintain with clients that are their emotions are running so high, their sensitivity is so close to the surface.
Yes, and that's exactly why I wanted the audience to have your perspective here, because my job's real easy in that respect. That I can tell parents what I think, I can make them mad. Maybe they don't want to work with me anymore, but they don't usually have a choice. Yours, as you said, is a more delicate balance because they can fire you. You know, you don't get appointed by the court like I do, and so they can decide you're not fighting for me, you're not on my side enough, and they can fire you. So it is a delicate balance.
It is a delicate balance, and I think there's no substitute for experience there. Hopefully, we get better at it with time.
Yes, yes. And that is really true. You know, sometimes people have a younger lawyer and they're raring to go and ready to learn how to do this attorney thing, and they want to get in there and fight, and, or they don't know what to do. And so they aren't fighting. It can go either way. But anyway, I've got a good question, a big question for you when we come back. But let's take a quick break first. and then I'll reveal what that is. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to easysense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's easysense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness: Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. So I told you I had a question for you, and this I think is a big one. But, and just for fun disclosure, I asked you when we went to break if you wanted to be surprised or wanted me to tell you, and you said, surprise me. And so you don't know what I'm going to ask you, but I am pretty certain that you are going to agree that a legal side big don't is don't file contempt over every little thing the other parent does wrong. Am I correct?
Absolutely. And the contempt remedy needs to be used very judiciously. It often does more harm than good, quite frankly, and especially in the long run. So, but again, we confront that intensity of feeling. I want something done, and I want it done now, and I want it done permanently, and you, lawyer, are responsible to make that happen. And that's the dynamic that we deal with. And so it takes patient explanation to educate the client as to the possible effects and fallout and unintended consequences of pursuing a contempt citation. It can be it can backfire on the person who's filing the citation. They can look petty and vindictive. And then there are cases where a contempt citation, unfortunately, is appropriate. And that, in the best of circumstances, ends up with some sort of an order that creates more distinct boundaries in how the parties are to behave with each other. But that's about it. Why did mom put dad in jail? Why did dad put mom in jail? That type of fallout falls on the children. And if it's I haven't seen a contempt citation result in a long incarceration. maybe a weekend or
Right.
something like that. But
Right.
if it were a long incarceration, of course, and it can endanger employment and all kinds of things. But fortunately, in domestic contempt citations, I have never seen a long incarceration.
Right. I would agree. And speaking of unintended consequences, I have seen this, and I tell parents this, I try to stay in my lane and not give, of course, legal advice. I can't give legal advice, but I often do tell parents that I've seen parents file contempt and end up, like you said, looking petty, being admonished by the judge, and it actually empowers the other parent that is now thinking,
Mhm.
ha ha, you thought you were going to get me in trouble and you got scolded. And so, yeah, there are definitely unintended consequences that parents don't anticipate. I don't think they think about them. They may not know about them. But if you go in there thinking, aha, I got you, and then you get scolded and you get sent out of there being told you're being petty, then that doesn't go well either.
Well, and just a word of defense here for my brothers and sisters at the bar. Um, in today's world, when we have clients that are so intensely focused on their needs and what they want and the outcome, uh, even if it's unreasonable from the inception. They go to court, they don't get what they want. They go on the internet and say, "I had a terrible lawyer," and
Right.
and so I think in our profession, in our field today, uh, people cannot rely on those types of comments because they don't know the full story.
Right.
Nevertheless, we have to deal with that type of commentary, and it's unfortunate because the client who is inclined to do that typically is in a serious state of denial about their own responsibilities.
Yes. Yes. Well, and especially when you get that parent who they walk in my office and say, the other parent was 15 minutes late to the exchange last night, and I contacted my lawyer and I'm going to file contempt. And I'll say, well, how often has this happened? Well, that was the first time that they were 15 minutes late. That's unacceptable. And I tell them, you see what your attorney says, always listen to your attorney. But if it's a one time thing, the court doesn't want to hear it. They want to see, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is your area, not mine. They want to see a pattern and they want to see egregious behavior if they're going to uphold a contempt.
Yeah, I think that's true. And judges live in the same world that we do. They understand that there are weather issues, there are traffic issues
Mhm.
that happen, and so forth. And so one faux pas is not, very unlikely to do anything except generate a lot of attorney's fees and more intensive opposition between the parties.
Yes, yes. Well, and I even had a parent jump on me, and I had told the parents that I was going to be at a judge's luncheon. This was just last week, and I may be a little bit late getting here. Well, not only did that cause me to be a little bit late, but there was road construction on the way, and so I was
Mhm.
even later than I anticipated. Well, the one parent said, "You never told me about the luncheon." Well, I don't know if I did or if I didn't, but my response was, "Okay, if I didn't, I apologize." But I could not control the traffic problem. And that
No.
was the biggest problem, was the construction. And, parents are just too quick to jump on the other parent, jump on me, jump on whoever they can take their anger out on. And that's what it is, because it's usually the parent who feels They've gotten a rotten deal in court. They feel they've been slighted as a parent. And so they are looking to blame anyone else. And so I kind of feel for the parent who gets attacked for being late or something like that, because that is life. Like you said, weather happens, traffic happens, construction happens, and we don't have any way of knowing that.
Well, and we know, for example, that there are terribly unfortunate cases where there's been domestic violence, abuse, things like that,
Mhm.
and the best co-parenting under those circumstances is one where there are very, very strict boundaries, very clear boundaries for behavior of the parties. Uh, but but typically, fortunately, we're not dealing with that. And I'm going to stick my head out, my neck out a little bit here and say it's almost there's a parallel between the more intensely angry the person is, the greater their need for their own counseling.
Yes, yes. No, I absolutely agree. In fact, I had a dad, without going into the whole story, he made some very bad choices last week. And he sent me an email because I had sent him one telling him, here's where you went wrong. And he wrote back. And not only did he say, you're right, I acknowledge it, but he went a step further and said, I am going to get into some counseling of my own because I recognize that I need it. And those are music or magical words to my ears, music to my ears. To hear a parent say, I acknowledge I need it. Because a
Yeah.
lot of parents don't think they need counseling. They don't think they need anything but to get back at the other parent. And that's not healthy. That's not healthy.
No, and I think counseling can help them recognize their own denial and the role
Mhm.
that they play in inflaming the situation.
Yes, yes. And they often feel like they are somehow justified, like she left me, he
Yeah.
left me, whatever. And so whatever they do to them is justified. And I can tell you, it's a no fault divorce state here. And I think most states are, if I'm not mistaken. Most in this day and age, I believe, are no fault divorce. And so it doesn't matter if the other parent, unfortunately, to the court, it doesn't matter if that person had an affair, if they left you for someone else, if they did you wrong. I mean, other than abuse, abusive behavior, of course, is never acceptable or excused. But other things like finding someone else, having an affair, deciding they want to be with that parent, right or wrong, because I don't feel that's right. But our law says that people can get divorced and that there's a no fault aspect to it. That if you just decide, I don't want to be married to you anymore, again, right or wrong, they can do that. And so, if we're looking at it from the legal perspective, it's like there is no justification for your jealousy or anger or rage or pain. And I feel for people because sometimes I can see how painful they are or how painful it is for them. But, like you said, then get counseling, get help.
Yes, and it it again, it's a very delicate discussion to have with the client
Oh,
to
yeah.
say, you need counseling, um, because they feel so justified in their position and they're so hurt and so angry. Uh, it's a very delicate discussion to have, but it's a necessary discussion. And I think it's part of what the attorney takes on in the representation is trying to appropriately advise the client where they can self benefit and approach it from that perspective. It's
Mhm.
probably an easier sale, but we just have people who are so angry and so entrenched in their own sense of justification, that case is going to go before the judge. We know
Mhm,
that,
mhm.
and it's unavoidable. Then we want a very clear order from the judge. Most judges will ask the attorneys after pronouncement of the order, is there anything that I overlooked or that you wanted me to address? And we need very, very clear rulings that are easily understood, and, if I dare say it, easily enforced.
Right, right. Yeah. Things that aren't vague. When it's vague in the order, then it's more difficult to enforce.
Yeah, I think it's just people are there's a never ending stream of surprised people who go to court for trial or final orders in a divorce case. They're surprised that they didn't get attorney's fees. They're surprised that they didn't get a majority time position or the time position of parenting time they wanted or expected. They're surprised at how child support comes out. And so it's just again incumbent on the attorney to inform the client that there's risk and unpredictable potential outcomes on some of these issues.
Yes. That can actually end up making them look worse, like we were talking about earlier. And they don't realize that, and they don't want to listen to their attorney or to me or to whoever because they want what they want. And I also have a guy who asks everyone he knows about things and then comes back to me. And he literally said to me the other day, I've had dozens of friends tell me blah, blah, blah. And I told him, and I believe that he's a very social person. He's got lots of friends. He's in a business where he has contact with lots of people. And so I don't doubt that, but I told him friends, family, people like that are going to tell you what they think you want to hear. They aren't educated, they are about the courts. They aren't informed as to what the courts are likely to do. They just know you're upset. What you want sounds reasonable. They want to appease you and calm you for the moment. And so they're very, very likely to agree with you or give you what I call bad advice. And I'm sure you see that a lot too.
Well, it's terrible that people are so willing to inflame their friend and say, he shouldn't have done that, she shouldn't have done that, you should get this, the court should make him or her do such and such.
Mhm.
And the person just gets more and more enraged and more of a sense of justification. It's too bad, but it's very true. It's what I call the open mouth empty head syndrome.
Yes. And they think they're being a good friend or a good
Right.
family member because they're telling you what you want to hear. But we do people a huge disservice when we tell them what they want to hear, but it's not accurate and it's not realistic. And it just
Well,
perpetuates the problem.
and I again, the other extreme from the are you going to fight for me and can I trust you and all that is the also very difficult to deal with the client who says that whatever my attorney says is fine with me.
Right.
That
Right.
creates a difficult case, and so the client needs to understand there's a balance there between who's responsible for what in the attorney-client relationship, and it is their case, it is their attorney-client relationship, and they need to have an active role in the decision making about how the case is processed, in my humble opinion.
Yes. No, I agree. And I've gotten that, I've learned that from you and other attorneys that I've worked with over the years. And I really try to impart that line of thinking to the client that, you have to tell your attorney what you want. They'll advise you if it's not the right thing, but don't just rely solely on your attorney. No offense to you, but you're agreeing with me.
No, absolutely. Very
Yeah,
much so.
yeah, yeah. All right, it's time to take another quick break, but I've got a couple of ending thoughts here that we'll cover before we sign off today. So you'll want to come back for sure. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll be right back.
Did you know that your beliefs create your entire reality, but it's the subconscious beliefs that do most of the creating? Belief shifter and life coach Shiraz can help you identify those limiting beliefs and eliminate them, often in a single session.
Like, it was almost instant. Like, I had relief right away.
Creating better health, relationships, careers, and finances. Let Shiraz help you step out of safety and into awareness.
Definitely something's happening. It's like a flow inside. It feels good.
Whether in person or online, Shiraz provides personal coaching, belief shifting. Visit Shiraz at energeticmagic.com or call 416-529-7429. Energetic Magic. Find your greater happiness. Be well. Be aware. Be magical.
Are you struggling to care for elderly parents or a spouse? Do you wonder if being a caregiver is making you sick? Are you worried about taking time off work to care for elderly parents and balance work, life, and caregiving? Has caregiving become exhausting and emotionally draining? Are you an aging adult who wants to remain independent, but you're not sure how? I'm Pamela D. Wilson. Join me for the Caring Generation radio show for caregivers and aging adults, Wednesday evenings, 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern, where I answer these questions and share tips for managing stress, family relationships, health, well-being, and more. Podcasts and transcripts of The Caring Generation are on my website, PamelaDWilson.com, plus my caregiving library, online caregiver support programs, and programs for corporations interested in supporting working caregivers. Help, hope, and support for caregivers is here on The Caring Generation and PamelaDWilson.com.
Welcome back. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you're watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. George, we were talking earlier about parents wanting to file a contempt at the drop of a hat, pretty much. And I just have a few things to say that I think will emphasize something you said earlier about using people like a divorce coach or a PCDM, parenting coordinator, decision maker, people like that, because parents don't know what they don't know. And so I truly believe parents need to educate themselves and know what the rules of co-parenting are, know how to avoid some of the downfalls that can happen in a co-parenting relationship. And just like we were talking, and I'm just going to give one small example, but it will really emphasize the point that sometimes engaging a professional somewhere along the way is not a bad idea, besides an attorney or maybe an evaluator on the mental health side, but people like coaches and PCDMs and people like that. For example, we were talking about parents wanting to file contempt because one parent drops the kids off 15 minutes late. And I have a solution for most things like that happen, but parents, again, don't know what they don't know. And so if your order, for example, says that the delivering parent drops off, change that order to receiving parent picks up, because I rarely see a parent run late if they are picking up, because they're anxious to get there and get their kids. But when you're relying on the parent who has to relinquish the children now at the end of their parenting time to be on time, that's a little bit harder to do. I mean, it's easier for that parent to run late. And I'm not saying they intentionally do it, but I think they don't work as hard to avoid it if they're the parent dropping off than if they're the parent picking up. In fact, often I see parents who are picking up end up going early and they sit there and wait because they're anxious to have their kids. My point is, professionals out there who work with divorcing parents all the time know these things that parents don't know. And so, if you need help to know how to avoid those pitfalls, then I think you need to engage someone, even if it's for an hour or two, to learn what you don't know, learn some tips, learn some friendly suggestions that will help co parenting go much better. What do you think?
Well, I think to your point, the mental health professional can help make small adjustments that have big payoffs.
Yes,
And
yes,
so to have that parent coordinator, decision maker available as a resource, I mean, they don't do anything if you don't contact them. I mean, they're
right,
harmless
right,
for the most part. So, um,
right.
uh, and again, that's the wealth of experience. There's no substitute for that, really. That provides the experience to know a small adjustment that can have a huge payoff. And
Mhm.
so the I think it's almost like a pressure release thing. If these things are small while they're small and can be easily adjusted, it lets pressure off of the people. They don't build up resentment and anxiety the way they might otherwise do.
Yes, yes. And it is the example I gave is a small adjustment. Instead of you dropping off, let's have you pick up. It's that simple. And that will usually resolve the issue. And again, parents don't know that. And just having us make some small, few minor adjustments, it can, like you said, have tremendous payoff and benefit to the parents, and it preserves the co-parenting relationship is what it does.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a lot less expensive mentally and
Mhm,
financially
mhm.
than running back to the attorney's office.
Yes, yes.
And yet, I mean, there certainly are things that are appropriate to go counsel with your attorney as to what's appropriate steps to take.
Mhm.
I'm not trying to discourage that in any way. In fact, I encourage it. But
Right. Mhm.
uh, still, the litigation track is so rarely successful from the perception of the litigant.
Right, right. Well, and I'll share something that happened just last week. I think people appreciate stories and they appreciate real life application. Um, just last week, I had a mom talk about getting the children passports. And it's for later in the year. It's nothing coming up soon. And she actually had told the dad in the Talking Parents app, a communication app for co parents, that later in the year she was planning on doing such and such. Well, one of the kids, and these are young kids like 4, 6, and 8, one of the kids said, "Oh, we got our passports." And next thing you know, and of course, dad's asking questions. You got your passports. Where are you going? Oh, we don't know. Well, within an hour after I left my office, that was my last appointment. And within an hour, there was an email from dad's attorney to mom's attorney that had me copied on it saying, my client has reason to believe that your client is imminently planning on taking the children out of the country. Please advise, where are they going? When are they leaving? none of it was even accurate. And so this is where, people overreact. They don't know how things work. And, it ends up with something like that happening. And to me, that's extreme. And your point that you made about the cost emotionally and financially, I can imagine what just that one phone call and the one email that the attorney sent to the other attorney ended up costing both parents. They both had to pay their attorney for the email. He certainly had to pay his attorney for the phone call. And, I'm thinking for no good reason, you probably both spent several $100s to resolve an issue that wasn't an issue.
Well, to that point, one of your favorite stories to me is the children who told the other parent we're going on a boat,
Yes.
and
Yes.
it was
And
just
it was,
just a
yes.
tour boat, not to go away somewhere on one.
Right, right. I still laugh about that, as you can see, because yeah, it was a docked boat that they give tours of. And the kid said, "We're going on a boat tomorrow." And she called me in a panic because he's going to abscond with them tomorrow. He's taking them someplace. He's kidnapping them, is what she said. And she was all worked up. And it was nothing but a ship tour of a docked ship. Yeah, yeah. That's one of my favorites too. Because again, this is what happens when people don't know what they need to know, when they don't work through their raw emotions. That was nothing but a raw emotion response on the
Mm.
part of mom. And had she gotten counseling, had she engaged somebody on their case earlier, then we might have been able to address some of those things. She wouldn't do that same thing today, but a year ago or whenever that was, because that was actually fairly recent, that's what she did. Because again, people don't have the tools and information and education they need to be able to effectively and appropriately co-parent.
No, but it behooves us as attorneys to recognize how fragile our clients are
Mhm.
emotionally at times.
Yes, yes, yes. That is so true. And I'm glad to hear you say it because, yeah, it really is true. People are going through the worst time of their life and they are emotionally fragile. And you understand it. I mean, it's scary to think somebody might take off with your children, but I have never seen it happen. And I've been doing this work 31 years. And so, we're overreacting because we're emotionally charged. But like you said, our clients right now, at the worst time of their lives, are fragile. And I appreciate the attorneys who recognize that because you are legal professionals, but there's a lot of them out there like you who are attuned to what people are going through emotionally and how fragile they are.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, but
Yeah.
we can always do better. And I think most attorneys are always trying to refine those skills as to how they interact with a fragile client.
Yes, because there is definitely an art to it. And we all have to deal with them, whether you're the mental health professional or the attorney. We
Mm.
have to deal with their fragile state. And so it's good to recognize that and know that they're going to take some kid glove treatment.
Yes, absolutely. Well put.
Yes. Yes. Well, we're out of time again, but thank you, George, for being here. And for all of you, we will see you next time. This is Dr. Marlene and George, and you've been watching The High Road on the Dr. Marlene YouTube channel. We'll see you next week.
Tune in to The High Road with host Dr. Marlene and gain insight into how to rise above tough circumstances and learn the skills that will help you take the high road in your life, no matter what challenges might come your way, on the next episode of The High Road.